Hello, everybody. My name is Angelina Johnson, and I am your spiritual alignment coach. And it's really weird. Every time I'm like about to go on here, I'm like, oh, that looks good. And then I'm like, no, that looks terrible. Okay, maybe that looks a little bit better. I don't know. Whatever. I'm Angelina. I'm your spiritual alignment coach. And today I want to talk to you all about the 222 portal, which is today, because since it's today, we might as well talk about it. I also want to talk a little bit about the energy update of this week because there's a lot going on and there's a lot of ways that we can use this energy to our advantage. But before we use the energy of the 222 portal, and we talk about what the 222 portal is, and we talk about the energy update of the week because there's a lot of stuff going on. First, make sure that you send this video and my channel to anybody that you think is interested in spiritual development or spiritual awakening or hypnosis or the brain or behavior. Like and subscribe, hit that little bell so you get notified anytime I go live. It's kind of a thing, right? So that there can be people here participating in discussion. So let's talk a little bit about this 222 portal. So for those of you who don't know about like portals and numbers and things like that, the 222 portal, it just means like it's February 22nd, so 222. And there's a lot of energy that comes in at this particular time of the year. Hi, Scott. Thank you for liking and subscribing. And you're welcome for going live. I've been really excited today to come here today and talk to you all. I had this really cool meeting with somebody just regarding podcasting. And so I was like, you know what? I need to come on YouTube and talk. And today's like the perfect day to do that. So when we talk about the 222 portal, we're just talking about a specific day of the year, which is today, and how the numbers are lining up in a spiritual sequence, which is the 222. There's also a lot of planets in retrograde and going direct and doing a lot of weird wonky things and full moons and new moons. And there's just a ton of stuff going on. Obviously, we don't have a new moon and a full moon going on at the same time. But there's a lot of energy, right? Is the point. There's a lot of things going on, and we need to figure out how to decipher this energy so that we can use it to our fullest potential. So let's talk a little bit about what's been going on lately in terms of the energy. So here's some of the things that you might have noticed. So the first thing is that you might be in some toxic behavior, toxic cycles with the people that you love and the people who love you. So you might be going around and around in this toxic cycle. The other thing that you might be experiencing is some severe burnout. So what do I mean by burnout? Burnout just means that there's like, you just don't want to do anything. And some people call this depression. But a lot of times this has to do with like, I don't want to wake up in the morning. I don't want to go to work. I don't want to be in this relationship anymore. I don't want to participate in arguments anymore. Whatever that looks like, we just don't want to do it. We don't want to do it anymore. There's no energy left, right? The energy battery is completely sucked dry and we don't have anything left to give. That's what burned out means. The other cool thing that you might be experiencing, because those are kind of like harmful or negative, but there's a cool thing that might be happening for you too at this particular time of the year, which is that memories of forgotten interests, skills, or like your long lost dreams, those things might be surfacing for you right now. Now we have options, right, on how to look at that. That could be negative because you might be going, oh, well, I never did it and I wish I had. And, I'm never going to achieve that dream or I'm never going to get there or whatever. Now, you could choose to stay in that space. And we're going to talk about why you might be there. Because if you are there, that's okay, right? We're just going to talk about why and how we might change it, okay? Because that's that toxic cycle. So here's the current pattern that we are in here on the 222 portal with all these planets in retrograde and the moon cycle and all the things kind of converging on this one time. Okay. So the pattern is we have viewed life as if it's like a play, right? How many times have you read a book or watched a movie or seen a TV show about, life is just this play? And we all just have our roles and we're stuck in these roles and there's nothing that you could really do to break out of it. This is what I call, well, not just me, a lot of people call the identity. The identity is the thing that was given to us and that we can't break out of, right? Like Angelina, that's an identity. Hypnotherapist, that's an identity. That's something that, well, kind of. Let me think of a better example. Daughter, sister, right? Those are all things those are part of what make me into this version of Angelina. So when I interact with my family, it's a much different interaction. They receive a much different type of person than hypnotherapist Angelina. When I'm on the stage and I'm being silly and goofy and entertaining, it's much different than when I'm a hypnotherapist, right? Because when I'm doing hypnotherapy, I'm more serious, I'm taking in more information, that kind of a stuff, like that kind of attitude, right? So we have this identity versus self. The identity is everything that has been given to us by society, by patterns, by reinforcement. Like, for example, when I was a kid, I was told not to laugh so loud. You're laughing too loud. You're laughing too loud. So I developed this weird kind of quiet laugh, which I've since kind of figured out how to let go of. But when I was a kid, I had this weird little quiet laugh. And I couldn't figure out how to like just be free and laugh and smile because I had to be quieter. That's an identity, right? That's something that's been reinforced over time by other people saying, hey, laugh less, right? Or laugh quieter. So those are identities. Now, here's the thing with this role, with the identity. We get put into these categories, right? And especially right now, when we're talking about toxic relationships and burnout and things like that, we get put into the category of either a victim or a villain, right? So we get kind of, because, that's reality, we get put into this kind of dichotomy of you're either one or the other. So you're either the victim or you're the villain. Now, what does that really mean? When we talk about victim and villain, we're talking about somebody is doing something to you, and then you're just having things done to you and you're in reaction mode, or you're doing something to somebody else and they're in reaction mode. This is a triggering mechanism. Okay. What is a triggering mechanism? It's simply I'm activating something in you, or you're activating something in me. You're taking away my free will and control, or I'm taking away your free will and control. Okay. So if you're noticing those patterns, like take a moment to just think like, have I been seeing myself as a victim, or have I been called a villain, right? In some way, right? Victim could just be, this is all happening to me. They said this, and what else can I do, right? They put me in this corner. I feel like I can't do anything else, right? That's the victim mentality. The villain mentality is, you know, this is just who I am now. If you don't like it, don't be with me. That's one I hear a lot. If you don't like it, then don't be with me anymore. Or if you don't like it, don't be my friend. Or I am the ruler of this, right? I am the parent, or I am the boss, or I am whatever. And if you don't like it, get lost, right? That's very much the villain mentality. So how do we break this? The first thing we have to do when we want to break the cycle, so first we have to become aware, right? We have to notice if we're falling into one of those two categories, especially right now with this portal, because we're going to talk a little bit more about the portal in a second. But just before we can step into the portal, we have to be in a space of recognition about whether we're the victim or the villain. Okay. So we have to ask ourselves, who is this identity serving? Who does this serve? What does this do for reality? What is this doing for my reality? Now, think about it. Before I tell you, think about it for a moment. What does this do for you? If you are a victim or you are a villain, what is this doing for you? I'm going to tell you what it does for you in just a second. So just keep thinking about it. I'm going to come back to it. Who is this identity serving? What is it doing for me? So what is it doing for me? Who is it serving? It's probably not really serving anybody, although it is serving you in a way. And here's why. It's serving you to keep you in a safe and predictable reality. Okay. Now, when we talk about safe and predictable, a lot of times we're bored with the predictability, which is part of the burnout, right? The burnout part is like, this is boring. It's not fun anymore, right? It's not fun to argue with you. It's not fun to stick up for myself. It's not fun to establish boundaries. Those things are boring, right? And so we have this sort of like lack of dopamine, lack of serotonin towards other people because we're bored. It's serving us because it's keeping us safe. So what is safe? Well, safe just means I know everything that's going to happen. So if I tell you that, I don't know, that I'm mad at you because you're always late. You're always late. That means I'm a victim. You're the villain, right? So you're always late. Now, I know how you're probably going to react, because if you are late or you were late, you're probably going to become defensive, right? Now that's predictable for me, because if you're defensive, I know how to combat defensiveness. Now, what we talk about a lot is We get energy projections from people all the time. And an energy projection is just simply like what I just did, right? You're doing this. You always do that. You're doing this to me, right? That's an energy projection. When you become defensive, what you do is you increase that energy projection into something negative, right? And what we really want to do is we want to find a way to neutralize that energy so that it doesn't grow, right? So how do we do that if we're in the victim and villain mentality? The truth is you can't, right? You can't neutralize a negative energy projection if you're in one of those two roles. So you have to find a way to step back and say, ooh, okay, you're in victim mode, I'm in villain mode. How do we stop this, right? We have to be in collaboration with this. And we're going to get to that in just a second. So, whose identity pattern are we operating in when our trigger mechanism is activated? Okay? So, you're late all the time. I activated a trigger. Now, I have to decide, is it you who started it or was it me? Because if you were late, then maybe you started it. Maybe it was me not clearly communicating the time, right? Who knows? We have to figure that out. We have to figure out whose energy started the interaction. Now, here's kind of the tricky part because if you're working on you and the person that you're interacting with is not working on themselves, we have a problem, right? Because we can't force that person to interact with us a different way. If they don't want to be in awareness and they don't want to heal and they don't want to interact in a different way, they're not going to. They're not going to understand any of this, right? This is going to just feel more in that pattern of victim villain, right? Because if you're going, whoa, I don't want to be in this pattern anymore. How do we change it? They're going to take that as, well, what do you mean? What's wrong with me? Why are you saying that? Why are you saying that about me? Right? They're not going to understand this transition. We're going to talk about how to kind of bring that subject up in just a second. But we have to kind of look at this as like it starts with you, right? The awareness piece starts inside of yourself to say, I'm not the victim and I'm not the villain. Even if in that moment you are a victim or a villain, because that's the interaction, right? That's the interaction pattern, is that you're going to fall into one of those two categories. You're now saying, I'm letting that go. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not the victim and I'm not the villain. I'm no longer holding on to that mask. Okay. So that's the first piece. And it feels great when you come to that space and you're like, okay, this interaction is not going to work for me anymore, right? Whoever it's with, whether it's family or friends or work or whatever, I'm not going to operate in this space anymore, right? As soon as you do that, you now have to figure out how to get buy-in from the other person, or what are you going to do to move on with your path? Because this mentality, this mask is heavy, right? When I talk about this, check in with yourself, check in with your body. When I'm talking about being a victim or a villain, and maybe you're in a space of recognition as you listen and going, ooh, yeah, I could see where I'm falling into one of those two categories throughout the day. How does it feel? Does it feel like, yay, I'm a victim, or yay, I'm a villain? No, it's like, oh crap. What do I do with that? Right? Because I've been there and I am there, right? I'm in the same boat of like, okay, I got to detach myself or separate myself from this identity and step into my true self. So first we have to recognize, then we have to make this commitment, right? And this commitment is not just, I'm going to be my authentic self and I'm not going to be a victim or villain. It's to say, even if my trigger mechanism is activated, even if somebody come at me all crazy, I'm still choosing to not be a victim or a villain. I'm still choosing, sometimes, more times than not, to be in a neutralizing energy projection space, right? Now, I want to tell you guys now, if you've made it this far into the video, you're not going to be perfect, because that's not what you're here to do. You're not here to be perfect. You're not here to teach perfection. You're here to experience life. You're here to break free of patterns and explore and be in a space of just accepting and receiving and just expanding, right? Which means you're not going to be perfect. That doesn't exist, right? So as I tell you about this, I want you to know nobody is expecting you to every single time be like, oh, I'm in a pattern and I'm not going to do that anymore. It's just to say, you can break free of this more often than not. And this is a pattern of behavior that the brain has collected and received and said, this is what it is, right? And so we're going to talk about how to really take that pattern, and we're going to talk about how to shift it in just 1 second. So we have to figure out how we're going to get the buy-in from the other person because they're stuck, right? If they're not ready, they're going to be stuck. And if we love that person and we want them to be in our life in some capacity, then we have to figure out how to bring them along the road with us, or what we're going to do if they're not going to come along the road with us. Okay. So we have something called a recognition pattern. Now, recognition patterns are really just like a complex way of describing our left brain, because our left brain takes in evidence, puts that evidence together into a picture of reality, and then we say, yeah, that makes sense, right? So what this has to do with the victim villain thing is that when we have two people or more, right? So, me and my husband, we have two people there, right? There's two people in that particular relationship. There's two. Now, we have been with each other for almost 5 years. So in that 5 years, we have learned a lot about each other. We have gathered a lot of evidence about how we interact, how we deal with conflict, how we celebrate, how we create our dreams, how we make a business, how we interact with other people in conflict, right? We've learned a lot about each other in that amount of time. And our left brain has stored all of that information into a nice little picture of reality. So when I think about my husband, I think about him from the framework, from the recognition pattern that my left brain has put together. Now, whether everything is true or not, probably not, but the left brain has put it together, and my conscious brain, my right brain has said, yeah, that makes sense. We can accept that as true or true-ish, right? So if our brain has collected sufficient evidence that says this person will always be a villain, then no matter what that person does, even if they're just sweeter than pie and generous and kind and compassionate, we're still going to see them as the villain, because that's the picture of reality that our left brain has put together. So we have to figure out how we're going to change this recognition pattern first. Now, I like to think about this like a cookie cutter. So if you have a cookie cutter of a gingerbread man or gingerbread person, and you're making cookies and you're putting the cookie cutter down on the dough, and you're creating these little gingerbread people, and you've decided you no longer want gingerbread people, but all you have is a gingerbread man cut out. Well, what are you going to do? Right? Because it's going to look like a gingerbread man. You have to find a way, or person, you have to find a way to take that cookie cutter and change it, or change the dough, right? We have to find a way to change the cutout into what it is that we actually want. So say all you have is a gingerbread man person cut out, and you want to make a star. Well, there's lots of ways you could make a star, right? You could just point out the little arms and legs and point out the head and kind of even it out. And now you have a star, right? That's what we're doing with this left brain. That's what we want to do with this recognition pattern. Yes, this is the picture, and we want to change the picture because it no longer works for us. It's not Christmas anymore. I don't need gingerbread people, right? Now we're almost into Easter. Now I need eggs, right? Whatever that looks like, we're changing and shifting into this new reality of how we want to interact as our authentic self versus that identity self. Okay. So we want to change that recognition pattern. So how do we do that? First, we have to decide, or first we have to recognize, then we have to decide. Now we have to get buy-in from the other person. Then we have to be consciously aware that we're changing this recognition pattern. So I know this sounds really complicated. Well, I hope it doesn't sound complicated, but it might sound complicated. And if it does sound complicated, that's okay, because you're human and you're interacting with other humans, and humans are not easy, right? At least it's my experience that humans are not that easy. So how do we resolve this problem? How do we resolve the problem of the other person not having buy-in? The other person doesn't want to change the pattern. Or if they're a victim, right, they're not going to see themselves as having the problem at all. They're going to see you as having the problem because you're the villain and they're the victim, right? So we have to find a way to kind of bring them around to this idea that we are no longer operating in those roles, okay? So we have to figure out what that person's pattern is, right? What is their trigger mechanism? What is their recognition pattern? We have to figure that out. Now, there's lots of ways to figure it out. I don't recommend just observing and making assumptions and figuring it out that way. And the reason is because our brains trick us, right? Like I said, I've collected all this evidence of my husband that may or may not even be true, right? And yet I hold it as true because that's what my brain says I should do, right? But really, what we're talking about here is creating a real, true, honest, authentic reality, which means we have to ask that person, right? We have to ask that person, hey, do you feel like you're the victim in this relationship? Do you feel like I'm causing you harm? Do you feel like I'm activating you a lot? Like, what do you feel activates you? What are some ways that I can switch that, right? How can I switch away from being your villain? Because I love you and I don't want to be the villain in your story, right? I want to be your collaborator, your supporter. How can I do that with you, right? Now, if you say that to somebody who's a victim or a villain, they're going to be like, I don't get it. Right? What do you mean by that? What are you trying to get out of me? Right? This is really facilitating a newfound trust. I'm giving that left brain new evidence to collect. Now, here's the thing, we really want to support that. We want to really bring that evidence to the table. So if you're asking these questions to your partner, your friend, your lover, your father, your whatever, if you're doing this, it's very important that you follow through. At least sometimes, right? As often as you can to really follow through on these things. So, for example, if your friend or your partner or your father or your mother is saying, hey, it really activates me when you interrupt me. Interrupting me really I just get tight. I get anxious. I feel overpowered. So please, if we could work on the interrupting thing, let's start there, right? One thing at a time. Okay, great. So the next time you're interacting and you're finding yourself interrupting a lot and you're finding them becoming tenser and tenser and tenser, you could say, okay, I'm noticing, oops, I'm so sorry. I'm interrupting a lot. Let's stop. Okay, please continue what you're saying, right? We really want to follow through so that we can start rewriting those old recognition patterns. Okay. I came prepared today. I wrote out a whole script. So, this is kind of where people tend to give up, right? Because this is hard. This requires a lot of effort. And I should say this. It isn't hard, but it does require a lot of effort. It requires a lot of awareness and it requires a constant open flow of communication, right? This is just boundary setting, really. Like if you think about it just very like simple, like I try to do everything very simply, is it's just a boundary. Right? The boundary is I'm not a victim, don't treat me like one. I'm not a villain, don't treat me like one. We are collaborators, we are supporters. So if that's the case, right, how do we create that? Because this is all about that collaboration. And that can be really hard, especially if the other person doesn't get it, or they're not on board, or they don't trust you, or you don't trust them. Whatever that looks like, we really want to come to that space of, I'm never going to give up on this. This is a stubbornness, right? I am never going to give up on creating a new relationship with you because I care about you and I want you to be successful. I want us to be successful in our relationship, whatever that looks like. And it does also require awareness on the other person, which means be ready to receive feedback that you're messing up, or for them to receive feedback when they're messing up, because we have to become aware. Now, the other part of this is to find a way to give this information in a non emotional way. And I kind of gave it away already. How do we do that? It's just information, right? I'm not making a list of wrongdoings, right? That's not the point. The point isn't to show each other how imperfect we all are. It's simply to say, here are some things that we didn't do well. Here are some things we did do well. And how are we going to continue the good things while discontinuing the harmful things? Okay. So the conversation looks something like this. Like, how do we broach this subject with our partners or our friends or our family? I would like to have a healthier relationship with you. And I feel like our past patterns of interacting with each other did not facilitate a healthy relationship. How can we have a better relationship with each other? What are some things that I can do better, or some of the things you think you could do better? for us to have this healthier relationship. What even is a healthier relationship in terms of the two of us, or three of us, or five of us if you're in a big family like I have? We have to find a way for all five of us to interact with each other in a way that's healthy. So we have to define healthy relationships for our dynamic. I would like for us to get along better and support each other differently. Differently is the key word here, because I'm not saying the way we've done it sucks, or the way we've done it is harmful or negative or whatever. I'm just saying different. It's different what I want, right? Not better, just different. Different in a way that's more collaborative and more supportive, because that's really what I'm asking for, right? I want to create a collaborative plan so that one or both of us can become less activated by each other, right? Maybe I'm just activating you a ton and you're not activating me, right? Well, then we need to collaborate here on how I become, or you become, less activated and I become less activating, right? Because that's really what we want here. Okay. Here's the thing. Sorry, I got a little lost in my notes, but here's the thing. What happens if the person you're talking to, or yourself, if somebody else comes to you and says, "Hey, I watched this video on YouTube and she was talking about healthy relationships and stepping into a new reality and releasing identity and stepping into the authentic self, and I want to have this conversation with you," and you're like, "F you, you're crazy and ridiculous and this is all your fault," or whatever. We have our answer, right? Maybe that relationship isn't going to continue. It's unfortunate. And it's sort of part of things, right? We outgrow things constantly. If you are working on growth and you are working on healing, which I'm willing to bet that you are because you're watching a channel about development and healing, then it's likely you're growing as a person. You're growing in your consciousness. You're becoming more expansive in your own personal gifts. It's likely that not everybody's going to continue on that journey with you because they're just not ready yet. Doesn't mean they'll never be ready, but just right now, they're not quite ready, right? That's okay. We can give a ton of grace and space to that. It's freeing. It's information, right? It's different. Not bad, not worse, just different, right? I see you're not quite ready yet. I understand. When you're ready, I'm always around. I'm always here to help. I'm always here to facilitate, support, collaborate, whatever that looks like, right? And right now, it seems like that's not going to be an option, right? That's just information for us. Everything is information, and how we take it in and hold it and put it into our hearts, that's what puts us into that victim villain mentality. Okay. So we have this opportunity to have a heart to heart with ourselves. If I'm choosing maybe even not to have that relationship anymore and to no longer hold the identity of victim or villain, then I have to have that heart to heart with myself to say, okay, when am I being a villain? When am I being a victim? How am I presenting myself in those moments? What are some ways I can pull myself back from being the victim or the villain? How can I rewrite this story in real time? That's going to look very different for every person because every person lives a very different life, right? How I rewrite my story is going to be different than how you rewrite your story. And that's the beautiful freeing part of this, is that it is your story. You're no longer stuck in the default if you don't want to be. And the default is just the identity, right? It's the things that are being given to you and told to you as real, as solid and imperfect, right? This is who you are and you can never change, right? Well, you can, and it's easier than you think. It's simply a matter of awareness. Okay. So, how badly do you want to change? How badly do you want to shed a harmful identity that's no longer serving you or anybody else, right? How safe do you feel? How willing are you to be in an unpredictable state to gather new evidence that supports that change is possible for you? That's really the question, right? And who is going to be on this journey with you? Who's going to get to that finish line? We don't really know that until we make these decisions, right? Every moment of every day is a decision that we get to make in terms of how our reality is going to look in the future. Every moment of every day is a new beginning, right? You don't have to go to bed and wake up the next day to have a new beginning, right? If you're in an argument with somebody and halfway through the argument, you're like, I love this person and I don't really want to fight with them. Okay, that's a new beginning. That is an opportunity for you to start something new, right? To take a moment away from the argument and come back, right? To tell that person, oh my gosh, I love you so much. I really don't want to be in this fight anymore, right? That's that opportunity. That is the new beginning. So we don't have to wait for a 222 portal to have a new beginning and a new reality. We can do that at any point and any time that you so desire, right? It just so happens that the universe is really pushing for it at this particular time of the day. This is the pattern. Remember, everything in the universe operates in pattern, and this is just one pattern. So, if you choose, today is your time to shine. If shining is what you want, then it's yours. You can have it. You can have it right now. There's some decisions that need to be made on your own behalf about how you're going to present yourself to the people that you love and the environments that you want to be existing within. And this is what the 222 portal is. The time is now if you want it. If you are free, if you are ready to be free, it is now. Okay? If you want to use this portal or this type of energy to create the reality that you want, then you must, unfortunately, I'm going to use the word must, you must release the old identity and the karmic patterns that are attached to that identity so that you can be free. So you can be your truest self. So you can be happy, so you can heal, so you can start recognizing some other things. You have to look at this first piece and say, okay, this isn't me. This is something that was like forced on me or given to me or reinforced in me, but it's not me, right? Like this shirt. This shirt is not me. It is on me. I am wearing it. I wear it often in YouTube videos, but it's not actually me. It's not my skin, right? I can take it off at the end of the day. I can switch it into something else. This is the same thing. Identity is just like the shirt that you wear. You can take it off, you can put something else on, and you're free to do that at any point, right? Societally, looking at, yeah, anyway. Okay. So today, what I am challenging you all to do is to take a moment to identify where is your identity and is there any part of this identity that's in conflict with who you truly desire to be? If you desire to be something different than what you are being, then that is something in conflict with your authentic self. What does your heart desire? What does your soul push you towards? What can you be more in awareness about? That is the challenge for this week as you go and use this energy to your highest potential and highest good, is to just notice where the universe is starting to steer you. What doors are being closed? What doors are being opened? That is perfectly on par with the 222 portal. So that's what I have for you guys all today. I hope that you enjoyed this content and that you learned something. Feel free to leave me a comment if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feedback, added content, whatever you want. Feel free to leave that in the comments. I almost said content in the comments. And I hope that today that you are blessed and prosperous on your healing journey. May you be safe as you learn and grow and integrate whatever knowledge is in vibration with your heart and your soul so that you can continue on your path unencumbered by the past. And that's what I have for you. Until next time, everybody, I'm Angelina, your spiritual alignment coach, and I'll see you all next time.